Morning. Oops, there we are.
There she
How are
is,
you all?
Tracy. Hi,
Hello.
from Thompson Rivers University in
Hello.
Canada. We'll let you introduce yourself. Take it away.
Yes, hi, I'm Dr. Tracy Christianson. I'm an associate professor here at the School of Nursing at Thompson Rivers University, and I live in Kamloops, British Columbia, which is also known in the traditional lands of the Tk'emlúps people, in Secwepemc-Ulu, which is Tk'emlúps, the meeting of two rivers. So I'm grateful to be here to present something that is dear to my heart. I use this a lot in when I am teaching, which I haven't for a few years. But when I'm teaching, I am a big proponent of collaboration. That's how I practice as a nurse, and I don't practice in isolation. So this is my spiel to my students when I'm talking about collaborative quizzing. So, so I'm going to, let me see if I can do how do I get the slideshow here? I'm so not tech savvy at all, so bear with me. Here we go. So very briefly, just going to explain the idea of collaborative quizzing or two-stage quizzing or exams, to share a bit of the literature around this, and then give you a few tips, and hopefully you'll be able to see the value of collaborative quizzing. So student assessments, that's why we're all here today. But our traditional go-tos have been quizzes, exams, essays for the most part. They're fine, they work well, they help to facilitate our assessments of student learning and provide some account of our ability to teach. But there's some, drawbacks. It's students don't often get their feedback or their results in a timely way. And sometimes they don't even get feedback, they just get a grade. So the students aren't very unclear about whether these are, what was behind our thinking when we actually put in the question and our answers for those. There's really little in terms of helping teachers teach or students learn when we use exams. It's a lot of, let's just memorize, do the test, and it's gone out in one ear, out the other, so to speak. And it's really based on individual achievement. Whereas if we looked at cooperative type of learning and assessment, we're really looking at how students learn through emotional and intellectual support to gain skills and knowledge. It's much more engaged, and it also enhances their understanding and ability to synthesize the materials that we are sharing with them. It can also be used not only as an assessment tool, but it's also a teaching strategy as well. So what does this engaged collaborative learning look like? Well, these smaller, safer spaces for students to learn where it's less intimidating than having, say, a whole class discussion. Shared responsibility is focused on the team's success in this collaborative learning environment and not just on the individual performance. And the roles and structures really focus on the activities that make participation more natural, but also necessary. And when they have the support of their peers, it's easier to share with your classmates than always with your instructor, especially if the instructor doesn't make that a really safe learning environment. And two-stage group testing or assessment is really beneficial because it can not only have students learn, students learn as part of the assessment. So they're learning while they're doing their assessment. So what are two-stage exams or quizzes? So what students do, they first start and they write an individual test. Then right after, they would be in a group, whether this is assigned by themselves or by the instructor, but that would be done ahead of time. Then when the transition to the group happens, you're usually putting them in groups of 3 or 4, sometimes 2, but 3 or 4 seems to work well. And then the students write either the same exam or some derivative of that same exam. So in that first phase, as you can see, it's pretty independent. Most of the exam would be of the result of the exam, or the grade of the exam would come from this portion. But you can change it to what you, as the instructor, want it to be. It could be 50-50. It could be, whatever weighting that you would like. Then they transition and they move into this group phase. I have to say, this is the most exciting way to watch people learn. So they get in these groups, whether I put them in or the student self group decide. And the exam is pretty close, like I said, to the solo. They get one exam and they come to consensus. And I hope this will work. It's a 2-minute video of this in action. And even if sometimes I think the audio you can't hear, but even if you can't hear, it's really just watching. I hope it will work. It did work earlier. Here we go. Sorry, I probably come up with some. Let's see. Okay.
So we can't see that.
Oh, darn it.
I'm not sure how we can fix that. Does anybody have a good idea how we can fix that?
You probably need to share the tab that you're sharing, or the screen you're sharing.
Oh,
you're probably
okay.
sharing your
Okay.
slides. Yeah.
Okay. I'm very sorry. How about if I just put the YouTube video in the link for you and you can have a look at it? I don't want to waste your, get everybody behind time. I'll put it in afterwards. So what happens in there? That this is a class at UBC. They've kind of been the leaders of this. What they do is they have large classes, like 200 people in a class. They come into a big lecture theater. They each individually sit down, write their exam. Then the instructor with their teaching assistants then hands out the exam to the individual groups. And then they get together they're just standing, they're sitting, they're just starting to engage with this exam. And you can hear the volume just go right through the roof, and they're discussing and they're debating and they're coming to consensus. The image on this slide here is my students in a very similar this is a round lecture theater, and they're just sitting there with their computers doing the exam. And so they're just reviewing the exam, talking about it, and coming to consensus. So, and I bring this up because I think this quote really, I think, is the biggest thing. If we don't have our students learning how to solve a problem that they would have to try to solve in the real world, that, you don't do it individually. You are asking people. So, I think the idea of collaborative not being, an idea of cheating, because it isn't. It's, you need to talk to people if you have a problem to try to solve it where you can't solve it on your own. And in healthcare, we typically work in collaboration. So why do this? What are the benefits? There are a lot of benefits. There's immediate feedback, there's discussions, they're developing these soft skills like communication and problem solving and reducing anxiety and sharing ideas. And it's just very reinforcing that they are working together and coming up with these decisions and solving problems in a collaborative way. And I think one of the key things that I found when I did my exams were students left the classroom on a real high. When you think about how students leave exams, they look exhausted, and they don't. They're out there. That energy is really, it's really infectious. So it's really fun to see. And people are concerned. Like my colleagues are always concerned. Like, how will you know that they're not just going to go with the students who know everything? And it's like, because they discuss it, and you can see majority of them are coming to the answers through consensus. So even those that are a little bit more shy and quiet still contribute and are also learning from those who might have the right answers. So it's that sharing and learning and teaching all at the same time. So this is just some of the literature that's talking about the benefit of this. So those who know the answers typically don't get led astray from the right answer. So this is just an example of reinforcing that individual questions are high percentage are sticking to those answers when they go into those group questions. So that's just a description of that. And as you can see, the groups generally do better than they do on an individual level, which is really nice when you combine the two grades, the individual and the group, because then it helps build up that the overall grade for those students. When they learn in a group setting, it's that reinforcement of what they know and what they're learning. And so there's a greater retention for students of the content. And again, it doesn't matter what type of question you use. The groups tend to do better on every type of exam question that you give. And of course, from the student's perspective, they truly do value the collaborative environment that they're learning in. The two-stage exams were uncomfortable to write. Obviously, most disagreed. And they definitely increased their learning, as you can see as well. So even from the student's perspective, they really liked it. Just a bit more from the literature. It doesn't really matter the type of course that you would like to use a collaborative exam in, whether it's physics to nursing. You can use this type of assessment, and it's quite beneficial, as we can see. I really like that the students give the feedback, reduce their anxiety, certainly helped give different perspectives, and it created the opportunity for them to discuss and debate in a safe way. And also it's those soft skills, those interpersonal skills, the critical thinking to help solve the problems. And I'll have to say, the very first time I went, I proposed, this is what we were doing in class. to my students, and these would have been fourth-year students, they were very, very reluctant. They thought this just was not the right way to do it. But I gave them lots of warning, and I explained what we were going to do and how this would work. And I said, let's try it. Just trust the process. And when we were done, the questions were, are we going to do this again? When are we going to do the next one? So it's really, I thought it was really neat to see that the students kind of embraced it. So I think I think what the students think was these things here. So how do you do this? Make sure you embed some group activities beforehand. So students are getting comfortable with each other. And in a large group like a UBC 250 student class, that may be a bit more difficult, but they seem to make the collaborative quizzing work. Give very clear explanation and instructions to the students about what this is going to look like, how you're going to do part A, part B. Think about the weighting, how much, what's the value of this assessment? Is it, a final exam? Is it a midterm? Is it just a quiz? So that can make a difference in terms of how you're weighting the individual and the group portions of the exam. And then that ensures the grades that they will be getting. And then again, the types of questions that you would be using, there could be multiple choice, or there can be short answers. Is it going to be an essay? That type of
I think they're just open the Zoom, but
plan that switch, that transition from the individual to the group, because we all know they don't all finish an individual exam at the same time. So what will you do? How will you help them just transition and prepare for that next? What I've done is I allowed them a pen and a pencil, and I gave them mandalas, just those coloring things. So I allowed them to just kind of doodle and color while they waited for their classmates, or just to put their heads down, just kind of debrief. They could eat a snack, whatever they needed to do, but just to give them that little bit of time. And then they regrouped. And think about the individual group sizes. You don't want them too big. 4 would be, I would say, the max. 2 does work, but it's just, I think you don't get as much discussion than you would with 3 or 4. And think about the questions that you're putting in your exams for the individual and the group. Are they going to be exactly the same, or are you going to take a few of them and then add in some different ones, or completely different testing questions that you would want? And then really encourage that collaboration. It's just such a fun environment to watch students just to be engaged with the material. So there's lots of strategies that you can use, and lots of literature to help you inform how you're going to do this. So what about accommodations? We all have those students that we need to be mindful of, that they may need more time, they might need a quieter space. So what are the options for those students? I have had students, I had 3 students do it this once, and they did write in the accessibility office, their individual, and then they got together and they did the group. The other time I did it, they all just wrote it individually, and they took that grade, which I felt sort of, felt bad, because I think they would have found value in it and would have helped them reinforce the material. But accessibility is something that we have to keep in mind, but it can be done. So collaborative quizzing really is really one of the higher levels of student engagement that I've seen, what the literature is also reporting, and even the shyest students participate. And this is an image from UBC, and you can see like that's a pretty big class, and they still are engaged. So I think that's it. So it's very much a very engaging opportunity for students to learn, but also reinforce what they've learned. They become the teacher, but they're also the learner. And it's really fun to see how students really engage with the material when they're in this kind of environment. I often have some of my colleagues, and I say, why don't you do collaborative quizzing? And they'll say to me, that's not very robust. What about preparing our students for the national exams they have to write? So, well, for nursing, it's NCLEX, it's a national exam. And I said, this absolutely helps them because what collaborative quizzing does is reinforcing and helping them retain the material. It's not just regurgitating and forgetting it. So I think it does provide value for those who have to go off and do a massive important exam, such as an NCLEX or a professional licensing exam. So that is it for me.
Thank you, Tracy, very much for an innovative idea. And it's always reassuring when you hear about alternative assessment strategies that work in really large settings, you know, and because sometimes the ideas are wonderful, but people just, you know, don't think about them if they have a large group. So your experience is very helpful. I think the other thing that I was thinking about when you were speaking is the courage that it takes to try alternative things when usually students can be conservative. You know, their response to you was, oh no, I don't know, this doesn't sound like a good idea, maybe we should just do it the way we've always done it. And it's so interesting how many times people who have tried alternative assessments have said that that was the student reaction. And the fact that you persisted anyway, and that there was, you know, you said, trust me, trust the process, we'll talk about it. I just thought those lessons were really endearing, but also worthwhile. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for this.
And I guess the only other thing, Tracy, somebody's wondering about the relative weights, you know, the 85-15 that you talked about. Have you tried different weightings, and was that the one that you landed on that you thought was best?
Yeah, I tried the 85-15, I've tried 75-25, and I landed on the 75-25. I think there's a lot of effort that goes into students having to collaborate. And so I've landed on that. But again, I think it depends on the amount, the importance of that exam. Is it, like I said, like, is it going to be the final exam? So you might weight it slightly different. For quizzing, I do more quizzes. And so I would use those kind of weightings of 75-25. But again, I think it really, I think it really is an individual instructor. You know, they know their course best and what they want the students to really get out of that material, and how you want them to be, how you want to reinforce that material for them. So, yeah.
And the reinforcement of the teamwork, as one of our participants pointed out. Do you know that value of working with others in a high pressure situation, really, because testing is always high pressure, and
Very much so.
And that there's a preparation for the real world and working with teammates, you know, in a timed environment, all of that sort of thing. So thanks again very much.
Yeah, thank you. I'll get that video up here. Link.
Okay. Sarah, we'd love to turn it over to you. Are you there?
Yes, can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you so much.
Okay.
And